Welcome to the latest episode of The Independent, a bi-week edition. I'm Pete Sampson, joined as always by my co-host Matt Fortuna. Today on the show, two guests. First, two friends of the pod. One was a reoccurring host, Tim Murray. We call him the voice of the fan here now, and also our gambling expert. And then a very, very special guest, head coach of Vanderbilt football, Clark Lea. You know him from us standing over Vanderbilt football on the regular here, Matt. Two fun conversations. So happy. This is a very fun bi-week episode of our humble podcast.
Good time to have a gambler on here with Tim Murray, although we did record this a day before the FBI brought out its nothing but bet case against the NBA world. Be curious to see where that goes. But great conversation with Tim as always, and great conversation with Clark. Appreciate him making the time on a busy week with College Game Day in Nashville to join what he called his favorite podcast. And a couple callbacks to his first ever game at Vanderbilt, which you shadowed and maybe even slept over at his office for from the description that he gave in our interview. But Vanderbilt football has come a long way, and we're all better for it.
I know it. I was having seen what game one looked like of the Clark Lea era to where they are now, even just watching like their social media videos of what their locker room looks like and their facilities look like. Unrecognizable from where it was 5 years ago. So it was a really interesting conversation with Clark. A few interesting phraseologies that Marcus Freeman uses. And we talked a little bit about that as well. So a lot of good stuff from both our guests, but Clark Lea, fascinating as always. I think we had him for about 15-20 minutes, probably could have gone about an hour and a half.
Not a whole lot of questions in there. Clark is long-winded as always, but we're all better for it. We always get educated when we hear him speak. Before we get to Tim and Clark, I want to tell you about our friends at Home Run In Pizza. Pete, at the end of a full day of college football where I forget to eat because I'm watching every game and covering them too, I could house an entire Home Run In Pizza all by myself. Grab it out of the freezer, and in no time, I catch up on what I should have eaten during halftime.
Yeah, Home Run In Pizza, as I've said many times before. If you got kids in youth sports, don't know what to make for dinner, Home Run In Pizza is our go-to. A friend of our freezer, friend of the pod.
Fun fact, Home Run In is actually the original tavern-style pizza, the OG of cutting pizza into squares, real Chicago tavern style. Thank you again to our friends at Home Run In Pizza. We will start with our friend of the pod, Tim Murray from VSIN.
Our first friend of the pod guest today, Tim Murray, gambling expert, and I feel like he's the voice of the fan for the Independent. So, Tim, let's start there. I want to know how you're feeling throughout Notre Dame USC last weekend.
There was a lot of emotions. I was fired up. I want to say the most fired up I've been about a game that I wasn't attending. But man, I was on an elite level of just anger towards USC, just I wanted that game as a fan. I don't want to say as much as any game, because obviously they were in the title game last year and that, but knowing that the rivalry seems to be on life support, even though I'll say you guys gave me a little bit encouragement listening to the post-game pod.
Thanks for the shout out on your pod this week. I heard that.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit encouraged, I guess, about the possibility of this rivalry continuing. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, the opening drive, you're like, all right, here we go again. You know, the defense is going to get lit up. And then Jeremiyah Love doing what he does in the second drive that made us calm down a little bit. But when they went down 24-21, there was a moment thinking, wow, they're going to lose this game and the season's going to be done. November's going to be meaningless. And then, thank you, Lincoln Riley, for that spectacular play call. And, the rest is history. And, it's just, I think as a Notre Dame fan, and even some USC fans were agreeing with me that you're going to allow Lincoln Riley to be the reason that this rivalry comes to a close. And then, some people were saying, well, Notre Dame canceled the Michigan rivalry. Yeah, they didn't play 96 consecutive times or whatever it has been. So, I was pretty pumped to see them win that game. And now, the eyes set for the college football playoff. Obviously, some landmines out there with Navy being as good as they are this year, probably going to be undefeated heading into Notre Dame Stadium. Pitt being, the thorn in Notre Dame's side for a number of years, not in recent years, but we've certainly remember some crazy Pitt games. 2012 obviously comes to mind.
2018.
The Phantom. The 2013 Phantom Tuitt targeting, which is still one of the most ridiculous calls that I can remember. But yeah, that one feels like it could be a little bit annoying. Maybe it won't be a noon kick now that Pittsburgh probably is going to be ranked. They'll have the chance to be ranked because their schedule is pretty weak leading into that game. But it was satisfying, man. It was really satisfying to see them win that game. And what gave me a little bit of reassurance, guys, was the point spread, to be honest. It was just hanging out at 9.5, went to 10. You kept hearing people, I did a couple of radio hits last week. This should be a pick'em game, 3-point spread. I'm like, I don't think so. And look, the red zone bungling was pretty bad. The interception from Carr, but as the voice of the fan, I'll say this: to get the CJ Carr freshman moment in that game and to still win by 10 was pretty reassuring and eye-opening in a positive way for me thinking about this team moving forward, because I think we were getting to the point, guys, where it was like expected that CJ Carr was just going to play lights out. And it's like, he still is in his first year as a college football player. And you saw it on Saturday night. He wasn't a catastrophe, but he made some mistakes. He made a good chunk of mistakes, and they still were able to overcome that and win by double digits against, all kidding aside, because of USC being just the rival that they are. They're a good football team. And, they destroyed Michigan, who somehow is ranked ahead of them now, which I don't really understand. But, so I do think USC is a good football team. And now, here's the thing: as much as it pains us, we're USC fans, we're Miami fans, we're A&M fans. You want all these teams to keep winning, moving forward here to make that win look better.
A&M's at LSU this week, so I don't think that'll be a problem for Notre Dame fans, at least for 1 week, as they go into Death Valley.
Wait, you're getting only one former defensive coordinator on the podcast? You couldn't do both? What's wrong with you guys? Come on. I thought you had pull.
Maybe if Mike Elko goes to my alma mater, I can get him on here in a couple of weeks. As the voice of the fan and as our resident guy in the desert, what is your both emotional and rational confidence level now that USC is behind Notre Dame, that this team is going to the college football playoff?
Well, it's high, but there is a reality where the Miami loss to Louisville really could come back and bite Notre Dame in the ass here. And the situation that is in front, it's the ACC, Virginia and Louisville and SMU and Georgia Tech. Do I believe all these teams are that good? Are they better than Notre Dame? No, I don't. But it's the scenarios that are out there. Miami no longer controls its own destiny, guys. And the worst case scenario for Notre Dame is for Miami to not make the ACC championship game. That would be very bad, because guess what? Miami's 11-1. They're getting in over Notre Dame. Even at 10-2, they're probably getting in over Notre Dame because they beat Notre Dame. And I agree with that. Look, games have to matter. I don't know if you guys remember, it ultimately was moot, but I remember back in 2018.
I knew you were going to say Michigan,
Notre Dame, Michigan, and everyone was like, yeah, I know, but Michigan should be ahead of them. Like, no, games matter. They played, Notre Dame won. What are we doing? Same situation here. Like, if Notre Dame and Miami have the same record, or Miami's 11-1, sorry, Miami's getting in over Notre Dame. So Notre Dame fans need to be very in favor of chaos in the ACC, and they need Miami to make the ACC championship and win that conference, because I think there's a legitimate scenario, guys, where if you do the math, Group of Five's getting a team in, Big 12, thankfully Arizona State beat Texas Tech, because now I think that's a pretty big pretty good chance that's a one bid league. Odds would say so at -230. But the ACC is the weird one. The Big 10 feels pretty confident they're getting 3 teams: Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. SEC, it might come down to the 5th SEC team. Do they have 2 losses? Do they have 3 losses versus Notre Dame? So, look, I feel confident in the standpoint that Notre Dame will be 10-2. And I think the way that this team is playing even though the injuries are mounting a little bit. I think they're going to go 10-2. The worry is the things they can't control now that Miami lost that game to Louisville, which, I mean, that was so predictable. Louisville, Jeff Brom, double-digit dog, Cristobal being Cristobal. And look, Carson Beck is a good quarterback, as we saw on Labor Day weekend. But, like, I don't know about you guys, but he couldn't have played like that against Notre Dame. That would have been nice. Like 4 picks against Notre Dame would have been pretty nice for Miami there. But, you know, look, when you lose 2 games, this is the situation you put yourself in. And I feel good, but do I feel as good as the odds indicate, guys? Right now, DraftKings, I know friend of the podcast, has Notre Dame at -320. I don't think they're -320 because there are some controllables out there that aren't in their favor. So right now, once again, chaos in the ACC, Miami, no more slip-ups. If Miami's in Charlotte, I feel very good that Notre Dame's getting in the playoff because I don't think they'll lose the ACC championship game. But if they don't make the ACC championship game, that's not good news for Notre Dame.
It's incredible what Washington State could have done the last 2 weeks for this chaos theory. They could have wiped out Ole Miss and Virginia in back-to-back, but was not meant to be.
How about don't call fair catch when you're not catching the ball? I mean, I think that was what ultimately I still can't, like, I thought Virginia, I didn't think they would beat them, but I thought they were a good bet on a Friday night against Florida State. And now Virginia, like, is controlling its own destiny. And you look back at the Louisville game, guys, they win that game in overtime. They get a scoop and score and a pick 6. SP Plus had that as a 10% post-game win expectancy for Virginia. And now the Virginia Cavaliers are an undefeated team in the ACC. I think they'll stumble down the stretch here. I don't know if it'll be this weekend against Bill Belichick, but the ACC is something certainly to keep a close eye on here for the Irish moving forward.
What about Heisman draft or Heisman odds for Jeremiyah Love at this point? Is there any value there, or is it kind of baked into like a Notre Dame active Notre Dame money on Jeremiyah Love that makes it not quite as attractive? Yeah,
we were talking a little bit about this off air, and I don't think it's a good bet. So he's 20-1 right now to win the Heisman Trophy, and he was 45-1 prior to the USC game. So there was a rightful move for Jeremiyah Love. The two things working against Jeremiyah Love, in my opinion, number one is the schedule, right? You don't really have that big game remaining. He had his Heisman moment essentially on Saturday night, which was amazing. I mean,
it was celebrated in the end zone after the game.
Yes, apparently Marcus Freeman's wife not too thrilled about the Key and Peele thrusting in the end zone there by Jeremiyah Love. But I don't know if Jeremiyah, now, if Ashton Genty played for Notre Dame, he would have won the Heisman Trophy. I'm convinced of that. You rush for 2,600 yards at Notre Dame, you're going to win the Heisman Trophy. But he ran for 2,600 yards and was runner-up. Now, Travis Hunter was a unicorn and played a million snaps and did all the things that he did. But I think what really hurts Jeremiyah Love's Heisman candidacy is the schedule. And then you got to think about it this way. Championship weekend, guys, right or wrong, has become the closing argument for Heisman Trophy winners. And you've got Fernando Mendoza likely going up against Julian Sayin, 12-0 versus 12-0, likely, not saying definitely. And then you've got Ty Simpson, who just went through a murderer's row. Think about the stretch Alabama just had. They went on the road, beat Georgia, beat Vanderbilt, shout out Clark Lea. Then they beat Missouri on the road, and then they beat Tennessee. And now it's a weird spot this weekend. They got to go to Williams-Brice. They still get LSU. I think they still have Oklahoma. So they have so many opportunities. And then an SEC championship game. So he's got more than ample opportunities. I just think, for me, from a betting standpoint, he's a running back. That hurts him. And the fact that he doesn't have that closing argument on championship weekend. So at 20-1, I don't think it's a really good bet. I'll say this, and you can talk to Clark about Diego Pavia here, but you think about the two different players, right? Jeremiyah Love has 260 all-purpose yards against USC, somewhere in that ballpark. He goes from 45-1 down to 20-1. Diego Pavia scores 3 touchdowns, throws 1, runs for 2, does the Heisman pose. He goes from 50-1 down to 8-1. it's a quarterback driven award, as we all know, even though last year was a unique circumstance where Hunter and Genty went 1-2.
So here's my counter argument to that. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I do think he could get there. And I say that because I think there's value at plus 2,000. He's the lowest odds for a non-quarterback. And if you look at the guys in front of him, it's Mendoza and Sayin. I think one of them will be out of it, whoever loses the Big Ten championship game. And then it's it's Dante Moore, and it's 4 different SEC quarterbacks. At least 2 of those SEC quarterbacks will not be in the picture by season's end. We're talking Pavia, Marcel Reed, Ty Simpson, Gunnar Stockton. So I think there's going to be kind of a process of elimination here. And even if Sayin beats Fernando Mendoza and knocks him out, who's to say Jeremiyah Smith or maybe even Carnell Tate can't split the votes there? My concern with Love all along was he was going to split the votes with CJ Carr if Notre Dame goes on a run here. I think Carr's pretty firmly out of the picture now. No disrespect to him. It's become Love's show. He had the moment against USC. He's got the name recognition. And, I'm with you. Like, generally speaking, I think Notre Dame is hurt by not playing that final weekend as far as Heisman concerns are. But last year was unique, right? You had Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty, who I know played but did not win the Heisman. He was runner-up. And 2 years ago, Jaden Daniels goes in and seals it because Bo Nix, who was the favorite going into conference championship weekend, kind of laid an egg against Washington. So I do think, and Caleb Williams the year before gets hurt and doesn't play well against Utah and still wins a Heisman going away in 2022. So I don't know if that last weekend matters as much as it has traditionally. I'll add one more. The Pittsburgh game, which, again, probably not really a marquee game, but it's the biggest game Notre Dame probably has left on their schedule. Pittsburgh has done a big job, and you'll hear it the week of the game, celebrating this being the 50th anniversary of Tony Dorsett running for 303 yards against Notre Dame. Jeremiyah Love were to run for 250 against Pitt, or maybe even 300 if they were to leave him in that long. That
262.
would be 260, exactly. That would be a very big talking point. And again, I'm not saying he's going to win it, but I think it's too early to count him out. I think at plus 2,000, there is a little bit of value of staying the course and maybe throwing a little bit on him.
Yeah, I mean, those are all valid points. And look, I'm not going to say you're crazy for betting a 20-1 long shot, right? It's not like he's minus 320 like Notre Dame's odds to make the college football playoff. So I think the points that you make are valid. You think back to Jaden Daniels. Like Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock, they wanted him to win that award. I mean, he was putting up gaudy numbers against like Georgia State in like week 14 or something crazy like that. My question would be this: Notre Dame right now, because they are very much in the thick of it, is it wise for them to have Jeremiyah Love to win the Heisman Trophy? I would say no. I would say, Marcus Freeman always preaches team glory, and Jeremiyah Love is, he could fall out of bed and get 100 rushing yards, and that's not a problem. But I think for team glory, it actually makes sense for them to limit the Jeremiyah Love touches, because you have, I mean, what was it? Your colleague at The Athletic, Pete, I think Dane Brugler mentioned you could have them go, 1-3 or something like that in running backs in the NFL draft. So I think it would be actually wiser for Notre Dame not to have Jeremiyah Love go for the Heisman. You think back to LSU when Jaden Daniels did so, their defense was so putrid that they kind of had to do that. And then when they got their third loss, they were like, all right, screw it. Let's go get Jaden Daniels the Heisman Trophy. So once again, at 20-1, am I saying you're crazy? No, of course not. It's the Notre Dame running back who does have cachet in college football. I think it's a pretty uphill battle. And personally, I would need a bigger number for Jeremiyah Love to bet it at that price. Just knowing that, saying more so for me, I think Ty Simpson should be the betting favorite. And I think he has the most opportunities to win the Heisman Trophy, and he has the SEC championship, assuming Alabama doesn't trip up along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love how I think he's at 124 carries right now, which I think means he's 38 carries away from last season's totals with, 5 regular season. Just count 5 regular season games. Like, let's put the playoff aside because he didn't really carry the ball a whole lot in the playoff anyway. How much do you want to grind him into the ground? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. He seems like ready for it based
Yeah.
on last Saturday night. But if I was Notre Dame and you had to choose, like, hey, do we want to run up the box score here for Jeremiyah Love, or do I want to reduce the chances of him being banged up for the playoff by 5%, 10%, 15%? Like, I think you're looking ahead to December and January. I think it'd be crazy not to do that.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to for me. But look, I mean, the guy's awesome. And I was telling you guys, I was sitting in my kitchen last night, making a lunch for my kid and putting the dishes away. And I got sad. And I was like, oh my God, if they don't make the playoff, we only get 5 more Jeremiyah Love games. That's really sad. I don't want to look at it that way. So hopefully stay healthy, take care of business. I wouldn't be surprised, Matt, to your point. I do wish, and maybe there are places that offer it, I do wish you could bet on to make New York City, because I think Diego Pavia should be in New York City. I think Jeremiyah Love should be in New York City. But you got to remember, and this was near and dear to my heart about a decade ago, these were the same brilliant people that didn't invite Keenan Reynolds, the Navy quarterback who finished 5th in the Heisman. I'm like, it's a television show. He would have showed up in his whites after beating Army via a helicopter. And you guys were like, nah, we're good. We'll just have 4 here for the boringest show on television in middle of December.
As someone who was employed by ESPN at the time, let me tell you, the arrows were coming hot and heavy to Bristol during that whole week.
Moronic. The dude finished 5th in the Heisman.
Blake Horvat, there's still a chance if you upset Notre Dame.
College game day, huh?
Hey.
South Bend, November 8th. I'm just saying, putting it out in the ethers. Navy undefeated, Notre Dame, night game. I know, Pete, you're really excited that's a night game there.
Thank God they play Navy, because the game will be over by about 9:45.
NBC, it's all coming up NBC. They got the NBA back. They had the foresight to put this game at night, even though we all questioned it. It'd be something if they got game day for that game. Last one for me, Tim.
Yeah.
Notre Dame will make the playoff if. Notre Dame will not make the playoff if. And for argument's sake, let's keep it to what Notre Dame does or doesn't do to go undefeated.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they make the playoff. Obviously, we talked about the situation. Miami losing was not ideal. But if you're just talking about, going 5-0, the Pittsburgh game, I think, is one that has become more interesting, right? And we all talked about, hey, what's that weird spot on the schedule, the not obvious spot? And I think you and I, Pete, talked about maybe it was NC State. Well, NC State stinks. And now it's like, okay, it's Pitt. It's going to be Pitt. Pitt's coming off a bye. You mentioned the situation where, Tony Dorsett, are they retiring his number?
Aaron Donald's number is getting retired. So
Aaron Donald number. Yes, of course. Because
I think Notre Dame should bring Steve Elmer just for good.
You always retire a number when Notre Dame comes to town. That is
literally in 15 last time they played there. It was Marino, Dicka, Jimbo Covert, and they had someone else all give like pregame press conferences. I'm not even sure what it was for.
Did they say you should single cover Will Fuller in that game?
The greatest collection of talent since TCU North Carolina. They had Lawrence Taylor and Michael Jordan there. How did that work out?
And me a ham, yeah.
I did mention the 262. So if you could get Jeremiyah Love to pull a Julius Jones, that would be nice. A game that I attended. What was that? 02. But I don't think it's complicated. They're better, a lot better than everyone on their schedule. I mean, it is obvious. I was texting with a buddy who I respect quite a bit, and he has Notre Dame power rated 3rd in the country. I mean, you talk to people, there's a discussion from like 3rd to 6th on where Notre Dame is. I mean, I was looking at the Circa board last night, and they're 9-1 to win the title. I mean, there's a lot of belief that this Notre Dame team has the talent to win the national championship. And I think injuries obviously are a concern. Now you're looking at 2 backup offensive linemen. You're looking at a backup defensive lineman. But look, we know how Navy games can go. And Pete, I think you've said it best over the years. Good Notre Dame teams destroy Navy. And Notre Dame's a very good team this year, but Navy's also very, very good. And they've got a great quarterback in Blake Horvat. They can throw the ball. So Am I a little bit worried about Navy because of Chris Ash? Like, what's his familiarity with the triple option and this, weird wing T that Drew Cronick has as the Navy offensive coordinator? So, look, I think Notre Dame makes the playoff if they take care of business. They're better than all 5 of these teams. And let's be honest, I think they're better than every team on their schedule. I'm being honest. I think if they played A&M again, they would beat A&M. I think if they played Miami again, I think they would beat Miami, assuming health. The defense is getting better, but you can't have the breakdowns that we saw against A&M, especially if you're playing a team like Navy, right? Notre Dame's offense should have no issues against Navy. Teams have had success on Navy. Air Force scored all over Navy. Notre Dame should score every single drive against Navy, and they can't settle for field goals. And Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price honestly should combine for like 400 yards rushing in that game, because you should just lean on who you have. They're better than everyone on their schedule. They got to stay out of their own way. And then honestly, you got to cheer for Miami and, cheer for USC. You want these wins to continue to elevate, because there's going to be a discussion where Notre Dame at 10-2 versus 9-3 SEC, or Notre Dame at 10-2. What if Georgia Tech is 11-1 and loses by 3 in the ACC championship, and their 2 losses are to Georgia and Miami? Like, there could be some weirdness that happens. So take care of business, and I think dominate as well, because they kind of, I know style points aren't supposed to matter, but don't they talk about team sheets and all the analytics? Like, analytically, Notre Dame is very, very strong right now, and they need to continue to strengthen that analytical, data points.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Tim, thanks for coming on The Independent, talking a little gambling and your fan experience with Notre Dame season so far. So hopefully, like, what quarterfinal does Notre Dame need to make for you to attend? Like,
what it is. You know what it is.
You want Rose Bowl or
Rose Bowl, baby.
Okay.
Rose Bowl. I've never been to the Rose Bowl. So I'll quick. I know you got bigger, important people to talk to. I've never been to Lambeau. I will obviously be there next year. I've been holding out on the Lambeau experience. I do a radio show in Wisconsin. I've refused to go to Packer games because I want this to be my first Lambeau experience. And I live 4.5 hours away from UCLA, right? Or from the Rose Bowl. I refuse to go to a UCLA Maryland game for my first Rose Bowl experience. I need to go to a Rose Bowl. And if Notre Dame is in it, I know I probably will work New Year's Day. I will figure out a way to get to the Rose Bowl. So number one, without a doubt, is the Rose Bowl New Year's Day. I mean, think about that. That would be the first time since 1925 Notre Dame has played in the actual Rose Bowl.
The actual Rose Bowl, yeah.
I know they had patches, but they were in Texas. Rose Bowl, without a doubt, number one.
Yeah.
Someone who's lucky enough to be at both, those are 2 of the few things in this world that actually live up to the hype and will make it absolutely worth your while whenever you make it there.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Notre Dame to the Rose Bowl with Tim Murray.
And in Pasadena, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Yes. No fake AT&T Stadium. No, Royal Rose Bowl. That's right.
Absolutely. All right, Tim. Thanks for hopping on. Appreciate you.
See you guys.
Welcome back to The Independent. Appreciate Tim Murray for joining us and make us go down memory lane. Didn't forget about the Rose Bowl, but forgot it was the Rose Bowl outside of a strip mall in Arlington, Texas during lovely COVID. I remember Chris Vanini taking a picture of the sunset out of the back of the press box.
Over a bail bond.
Famous sunset in the middle of North Texas.
That was rough. Well, I mean, look, I think Tim Murray's calling a shot. How about Notre Dame IU Rose Bowl? I don't know if I need to see Notre Dame Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, but Notre Dame IU, that would be a fun little show.
Yeah, well, they both have to win. Yeah, but I could see that. I could see Notre Dame at IU, which would be interesting after last year, and definitely make for an interesting crowd dynamic as well. But a lot of, I mean, I was listening to our colleagues Doug and Bill on their Ohio State show. They had Ari on this week, and they were talking about like how many teams could actually win the national title, and I think they got up to 9. And I do think it's one of those years that's wide open. I just think even Ohio State, I think they're clearly the best team, and I think they're beatable. Like, I just think everyone who's in the mix right now has reason to think this could be their year.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe our next guest is not on Ari and Bill's list of 9 with Doug, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. I think stranger things have already happened. But before we get to Clark Lea, shout out to a couple of our sponsors, Roback. That's RHOBACK.com. 20% off with promo code Irish on your first order. Hoodies, quarter zips, polos, joggers, shorts, like workout gear. I think I pretty much got all that covered. The Notre Dame Game Day polo, ubiquitous around Notre Dame Stadium these days. I'm wearing the crew right now as we podcast. It's my go-to uniform for all things podcasting, golfing, dog walking, just active lifestyle. That's roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use promo code Irish for 20% off your first order.
And thanks to our friends at Obvious Shirts, obviousshirts.com, OBVIOUSSHIRTS.com. Great pod merchandise, t-shirts, quarter zips, hoodies, crew necks, and more. Great pod logo, great sayings from some of your favorite Irish characters, and of course, still available and still technically true, Southern Cal is afraid to play us, which has been a bestseller lately, along with Domes on Domers in honor of both your lovely hosts and our next guest coming up on this podcast, Clark Lea. And before we get to Clark, we'd like to also thank our friends at DraftKings. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back. You think you know the game? Put your knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. With live betting, rivalry week odds boosts, and more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to own every Saturday. Notre Dame may be on a bye, but they do play Boston College next week. In the meantime, there are props available. Jeremiyah Love, the lowest odds of any non-quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy, plus 2,000 right now at DraftKings. And here's something special for first timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code INDEPENDENT. That's code INDEPENDENT for new customers. Get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-97777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. And with that, we welcome in Clark Lea.
Pleased to welcome into the Independent a friend of the pod and the head coach of your second favorite college football team, especially last weekend. Clark Lea, thanks for joining, making some time for us on this huge week, game day in Nashville. And I guess just like a general question, what's it been like to sort of be on this ride with Diego Pavia and have it hit this weekend where you've got the eyes of college football, like Nashville is the center of the college football universe this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome, and I think we try not to spend too much time in the externals, because you've got to stay in process. But I have encouraged the guys to enjoy the moment we've created. I think we can have fun with the fact that we've got a real energy around our program right now, and we know ultimately we'll be measured in the way we play on Saturday. But this is a neat moment for Vanderbilt football, and hopefully just a beginning of something we can sustain over time.
Clark, you've had some, what some people will call bold statements about Vanderbilt football initially when you got there. Kirk Cignetti had some bold statements about Indiana football. Both you guys are doing it right now this year. I'm just curious, what is it? Where does that confidence come from? And what was it going back a couple of years now that made you believe that a moment and a time like this was possible for Vanderbilt football?
Well, Kurt got to his success a little faster than I did. So maybe he's a better prognosticator than me, but it's really, honestly, it's more about a belief in people. And this program in particular, I mean, I think so much of what's held it back in its past is just a lack of investment, a lack of the value we see in it as members of this community. And so my job has been to change the internal perception first. We've had to course correct along the way. We really came into this thing without much of a plan for transfer portal and NIL, which to say that right now sounds like negligence, but at the time it was hard to gauge just how, it really had just been enacted, and it was hard to gauge how big of a deal that would be. And it took us a couple of years to get some of those systems in place and to start participating. But as we have, what we found is, the ground shifting in the college football world actually helps the young startup, and it gives us opportunities to equal or level out the playing field. And if we can carry the parts of the initial design, which was, hey, we have to be really smart in the way we play, we got to win the margins. And when you combine that with some pretty skilled talent acquisition and the development of some of the guys we've recruited in the program, we kind of sit here at a moment that is created in all that. And so the initial statements of confidence, I believe smart people figure things out. I think winning is so much in the habits, behaviors, and the investment. This is still a human endeavor. This is still about how you motivate and inspire people to bring their best every day. I think I've learned a lot about how many people it takes to build a winning program. There were a lot of things at Notre Dame that I maybe took for granted with respect to the ancillary parts of the program that supported success. But, in stepping into this job, I believe the right people doing the right things the right way in time would win out. And, that's what's happened for us.
How have you sort of maintained, I think outwardly, an unshakable belief that this could happen for Vanderbilt? And I'm asking, also sort of in private moments where you're like, have there been times where you're just like, man, is this are we doing this the right way? Do I have the right plan?
Well, yeah, first of all, yes to that. I think part of finding success is constantly challenging and challenge everything, and when you're not experiencing results, you have to look at it and say, maybe I don't have the right plan. And always think about, in particular, one week in December of 2023, where we were gonna step into this world of NIL and portal, and I had a line of players outside my office and sitting down with them one by one, and I was so uninspired by what I was doing, and it was very challenging, and I just kind of kept myself grounded on this idea of if we're to be successful, if I'm looking back on this moment in 10 years and we found that success that we so desperately want, we're looking back on this from that perch. What am I learning right now, and what learning is turning into action that's actually going to allow us to change this thing? And that was really helpful to me, just to say, really it's all about, my job is to problem solve. And if I'm not identifying the problems I need to solve, then I'm not actually doing my job. And so that's been helpful. I have kind of outward belief. That outward belief is very authentic, and there's integrity there with my internal belief. But I think if we're to believe anything, we have to challenge it first. And there certainly have been many moments where I've wrestled with not necessarily, am I doing this the right way? Because like I said, I think that's a part of evolution. That's a part of growth. And it's painful, but you have to learn through the lessons and change, and be willing to change your course. But, I think the worst moments are, is this possible? And that's a real thing too. And I've got a group of people around me that, that support me in ways that I can live in those kind of moments of doubt briefly and quickly snap back into what I know to be true, which is there are so many foundational things about Vanderbilt football that are going to allow it to be different. And we can win through differentiation. And so much of my job is to set a course for that and to lead from a place of confidence in that. And that confidence comes from my willingness to grapple with the fear of it and grapple with the doubt of it, and allow those kind of painful moments to help us evolve and change course. And, all of it is what, all that combined is what makes this moment so special, because it wasn't inevitable. We had to really live in it and grow through it to make it happen.
You guys launched a Heisman campaign this week for Diego Pavia. I'm curious, on the surface, you and him could not be any more different, and yet it's turned into this perfect football marriage. Can you give us a little background of how you two make it work and what he has meant to this place and this place's rise?
Yeah, I think when you experience it on the surface, it doesn't always add up. But I mean, if you cut him open and cut me open, we bleed the same. I mean, there's so much about him that I can relate to, and vice versa. He's so humble in his process. He's so curious. He's so driven to win and to be great. I've had so many incredible conversations with him, be it on the phone or in my office. He's a connector with people. Relationships are really important, and that means that's not just me or Tim Beck. Or his offensive line, every person in this program, he's got a relationship with. If you saw him walk in the building, sometimes it takes him 5 minutes to get to the locker room because he's sitting there talking with everyone he passes by. There's a lot of humility in Diego, and that's actually what allows him to play with the confidence he has. But those are the things that, again, we're more alike than we are different. It doesn't necessarily come in the same package, and I think I celebrate that. We talk about being a team of misfits here, and I think we both embody that in the way we attack. And he's obviously meant a lot to us. So I've learned a lot about how important that quarterback position is and how critical his voice is in the locker room and his competitive edges in the way we play on the field. And I think in that way, he'll leave a legacy here with respect to results and excitement, but the real legacy is that establishing player leadership in our locker room and really being an example of what that looks like at the highest level.
How much do you think his sort of presence there has helped guys at Vanderbilt believe, like, yeah, we can go out and beat LSU and it's not a surprise? Like, I was really struck watching your game last week where, not that it wasn't a big deal, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like Alabama last year, right? Like, it was like, we're favored, we expect to win, we're going to go out and win, we're going to take care of our business. Like, how important is that belief there? Because that was something that took years for you to sort of get in a good place at Vanderbilt.
Yeah. His attitude has been huge, and his competitive edge has been huge in the shift in our locker room. And but that a lot of that happened a year ago. I think the team that we were in 2024 was this team that was very confident, but still learning how to win. And we're still not good enough just to roll the ball out and line up and play. We have to play to an identity. We have to execute a strategy. But we know that when we do those things, and it doesn't require, and I think your point, Pete, is it doesn't require us going beyond who we are. This is about, we're going to go play Vanderbilt football, and that's going to be good enough to win any game we play. A year ago, we had the confidence. We were still learning the process, and I think we kind of settled on that as the year went. This year, we haven't needed any kind of reminder of who we are. This is a confident group, and we expect to win, like you say, and it's not something we have to talk a lot about. It's just that's who we are and what we do. I noticed in 24, in the summertime, when Diego was really embedded in the process with the guys going through training. Another shout out here with respect to that foundational confidence is Robert Steiner, who was with us at Notre Dame, who's our strength coach. He's just been phenomenal. But I started to notice a different kind of competitive swagger on our field from all parties, a different excitement around what we were doing during training camp in 24. And then when we played Virginia Tech to open the season last year, that was a game. It was the first time I saw Diego, take a game over, and the way that fueled everyone's performance. It was immediately noticeable to me. So, and again, that's a game that we won in overtime where we tried every way to screw that up, so it's been a process to both, the confidence, the the swagger, the competitive edge, all that is kind of coming to being maybe a season ago. Through the course of last season, we learned how to win. And now this year we step into that with both the awareness who we are, the awareness of what it takes, and that's allowed us to have the season we've had to this point.
Clark, if you could go back a few years now, 2017, you're a linebackers coach in Notre Dame. Could you have imagined a scenario where your boss, Mike Elko, is a head coach in the SEC, your boss's boss, Brian Kelly, is a head coach in the SEC, and oh, by the way, you're a head coach in the SEC as well? I mean, what's it like? I know this business is what it is. It's very fickle. A lot of people move around from time to time, but to put into context just what it means to be in a league, especially that league, with two other guys you shared rooms with at Notre Dame, what's that like for you?
It's special, I mean, I guess you get into these modes where I can't hardly contextualize anything I'm experiencing right now. This is all about kind of how I just live where my feet are and focus on this team and focus on what we need to do. And so, like the idea that we played BK last week, and obviously it was great to see him before the game. But I mean, I really didn't put any emotional energy into that. I stay in close touch with Mike Elko. I mean, obviously I made it to Notre Dame because of Mike, and then I was elevated at Notre Dame because he chose to leave, so I owe him a ton. And I love, obviously seeing his success, and God, have such a belief in him as a coach. And so it's all really cool. It's just, especially in the season, you're so day to day, it's hard to get any kind of perspective. And I think certainly a cool moment, and a moment where, Mike and I were together at Bowling Green, and I think he was probably, I was 30 years old. I think he was something like 34 or 35 as a coordinator. And that was really where our friendship formed. And to see both of us in this moment where, we're running programs in this league, that's pretty special.
Clark, I was interested. You mentioned challenge everything, which is something that Marcus Freeman says a lot up here. What does that actually mean? Like when you activate that, like, and could you give an example or two at Vanderbilt where like challenge everything has been like actionable, not just like words to live by?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at just the initial design of our program and what we were attempting to build, there was a thought of, we're gonna out evaluate people. We're gonna find the kind of the raw material, length, range, speed, measurable stuff that in 3 to 5 years we were going to have a team that was older than the rest of the teams in our conference and developed into SEC caliber players. And when Ray Davis left us after 2022 as a 1,000-yard rusher to finish his career at Kentucky, I realized like we had a real problem on our hands, which means, we were going to be the developmental program for our league if we didn't figure it out pretty quick. So you constantly are challenging the paradigm through which you're viewing the program. I think it's so easy in these positions. And this is true of a head coach, it's true of a coordinator, it's true of a position coach, to look to validate what you are doing. Not by challenging it, but by celebrating it. It must be good because this is how we do it. Or, here we are 5 years into this, guys. And I mean, in 5 years, we've had to kind of course correct and evolve as we go. And so what we did 4 years ago isn't necessarily meant for the program we are now. And if you just blindly copy and paste things forward, you're going to end up stagnant. And in this day and age in college football, stagnation is the course to mediocrity. So, I use the example of again how we build a roster as an element of, hey, we got to challenge everything. I mean, one of our core tenets as a staff is don't accept no for an answer. I mean, we've had to work really hard with our campus to establish pathways for us to bring transfers in, to bring grad transfers in, to get them here in the mid-year. And so there's this, there is no answer that exists, say, at Vanderbilt, this is how we do it. It's like, well, we have to collaborate on a new path because that's what it's going to take to be successful. And fortunately, we've had good partners here in our department and on campus that have facilitated kind of that collaboration. But that's, again, if we allow this program to exist in the conditions it's always existed in, I know how that story ends. So we need to challenge it. We need to reimagine it. We can never give up the dream, which is the dream of a championship level sustained success program. And that means that, everything we come into contact with, we need to take our approach to it and not just let it happen, as the environment dictates it'll happen.
We'll get you out of here on this, Clark, and thanks so much for your time, especially this week of all weeks. It's got to mean a little bit more to you personally, right? Just being a Nashville native, a Vanderbilt graduate, seeing this kind of attention, this kind of success at your school. I mean, you obviously could have imagined it, otherwise you wouldn't have taken the job. But what can you just put into context what that means for you as a son of Vanderbilt, a son of Nashville, and to have so many people I'm sure that you grew up with who are now rallying around this program right now?
I mean, it's special. And it's also, it's so personal, man. It's like, it's made it harder, I think in some ways. I guess the challenging moments have been really personally hard, because inevitably when we come home, we want to be embraced, and we're looking for a sense of belonging. And, a lot of ways my position now is belonging based off results. And that's, look, this is what you sign up for as a coach, but it makes it hard to come home. And obviously the experience in the breakthrough moments, it does make it really special. I'll tell you, outside of, kind of the thing that's most special to me is that I'm doing it with a group of people, many of whom actually came with me from Notre Dame, as it turns out. And I think one thing that was interesting about last week's game is we probably have a little more Notre Dame presence on our sideline than LSU had on theirs. And that goes back to the depth of connection that I built with people, players and staff when I was in South Bend. But what makes this special is we've got a group of people who believe wholeheartedly in what we're doing, who suffer and sacrifice for it every day. And I get a chance to celebrate with those people the success that we've now found. And anything that happens external to that is like a lag effect, again, of our investment, our determination, our resolve. So many of these people were here in 21 when we were 2-10, and Pete witnessed the first iteration of this program. It was a brutal reality that I was waking up to. Pete, I think you helped me wake up to it on my couch here on the Sunday after the game. But the folks that were here and experienced that and watched me as I learned, first of all, the challenge of can I do this? And then I can do it, but I can't do it on my own. And there's a group of people here that were with me and supporting the vision that we had for the program. Then they were here in 23 when we revisited 2-10, and we had to kind of scrap everything and throw it away. So, and reimagine, find the new course through, but they never flinched and never faltered in their belief. I get to celebrate this with those people, and it's something that Vanderbilt's experiencing in a lot of ways for the first time too. So that is so special. The hometown part of it can be a burden at times, but the fact that I know where my kids are going to school, it's kind of thoughtless for me as I get around the city here. But the other thing that's been really meaningful to me is fans that have been engaged with this program for decades who come up to me on the street and say thanks, because you realize that I guess it highlights this idea that what we do can have such an incredible impact on community. There's such an emotional connection to college athletics, to college football. And I deal so much in a little bubble here with the team and the people and the staff to realize that what we're doing is rippling out in the community and impact and joy and connection. Those things are really special. So long-winded answer. I mean, I think I'm really enjoying in the moment and appreciate and grateful for the team and the staff and all that we put into this. I'm excited to take it further. We keep our focus on that so that we can actually find out how good this can be.
All right, Clark, thanks so much for making some time this week. Best of luck this weekend in Missouri and the rest of the season. And who knows, maybe we'll be seeing you in December and January.
That would be something else. My pleasure, guys. Great to be with you.
Thanks, Clark.
All right, that was Clark Lea, head coach at Vanderbilt. And I got to say, he's always interesting to talk to. I thought it was kind of cool to dive into what challenge everything means down there, because it means something a little different at Vanderbilt than it does at Notre Dame. And then I think he definitely got my nod at the end. Maybe we'll see you on December 20th. We'll see. We'll see how things shake out the rest of the season.
10-2 Vanderbilt will get in the playoff. Now that would require them to win this week. They've got, it's Vanderbilt. You can't take anything for granted, but they've got road games at Texas and Tennessee, neither of which I think looks as intimidating as we thought they would be at the beginning of the year. You get one of those and you go 10-2, you're in.
Yeah. You would have Missouri, Auburn, Kentucky, and then split Texas and Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's
it's doable.
Doable, almost likely at this point, the way that they're playing.
If they stay healthy, look, they could have beaten Alabama. I don't know how closely everyone watched that game. The final score did not indicate it. They were going punch for punch for the Tide. Pavia turned it over twice in the red zone.
They played Vanderbilt played poorly and was right there.
But they kind of gave Alabama the game.
Yeah.
Not that Alabama needs help doing that, but this is a really good football team. I was going to say, we should close it by predicting Vanderbilt, Missouri, since there's no Notre Dame game to predict. Line is 2.5 on DraftKings for those who are interested. I've got Vandy 27-20. I think
that's about right. It's Vanderbilt is a really fun watch. They remind me a little bit of Notre Dame last year, where they really can only beat you in one way on offense, but they're so good at that one way that it's just a pain in the ass to deal with. And I think you saw that with LSU last week.
Number 2 scoring team, number 3 rushing team, number 2 in yards per play. They've been through the fires. They won a big game by a lot at Virginia Tech. They played at Alabama. They beat LSU at home. They beat the hell out of South Carolina on the road. Missouri, again, I don't know who Eli Drinkwitz has kissed up to in the SEC office, but they get the easiest schedule every year, including this year, where they just played their first road game of the year last week at Auburn, and they needed double overtime to win it. And I just think ultimately, I think Vanderbilt's the better team, and I think they've been more battle tested clearly than Missouri has so far. So again, I don't think you could take anything for granted if you're Vanderbilt. And I think clearly they've got the right guy in charge who understands that. But look, they had game day for the Alabama game. I know it's different when it's on your campus, but they've had this attention before already this season. So they didn't get the independent treatment, but Notre Dame didn't have a bye that week. So he'll have to forgive us for that.
The independent bump coming for Vanderbilt football, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, and then hopefully we'll see them in December. That would really be something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was a fun pod today on the bye week. Couple good guests. Thanks to Tim. Thanks to Clark for coming on. Thanks to our listeners for being with us. Reminder, you can always check us out on Apple, Spotify. Please subscribe, rate, review the pod. Also, you can check us out on YouTube if you want to see our lovely faces for a solid hour every week, twice a week during the season. We will not be doing anything pod related on Saturday. Do you have any big bye week plans?
Yeah, what will you be doing?
What will I be doing? I will be going to a school function, like a trunk or treat. Do your kids do these?
Okay. Kind of, not that specifically, but yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot more large space parking lots in Indiana than there are in Chicago. So we're doing that on Friday night. And I think Saturday I'm just going to be watching football. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I've got some fall themed ales to sample on my couch while watching football. It's going to be a very nice Saturday.
With home run and pizza.
With home run and pizza, in case I forget to eat because I'm watching games all day.
Bruce Springsteen movie tomorrow night. Already got my tickets.
Ooh, yeah. I want a review on that next week. That's on my list.
I can't imagine I won't like it, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then, looking forward to just sitting on the couch and watching games from sun up to sundown on Saturday.
Should be a good one. So until next week, when we come back to probably lightly preview Notre Dame Boston College because it's not that interesting.
We should have had Ivan on for that week with the Holy.
Oh yes, the Frank Leahy Memorial Trophy, right? It's yet another trophy Notre Dame plays for. Where I think if you ask the average Notre Dame fan, they'd be like, "There's a trophy for that."
Notre Dame of the Big Ten are the kings of like, oh wait, what's this?
Yeah, it's the jeweled shillelagh and jeweled shillelagh only around Notre Dame and the megaphone, which will be maybe coming back next year. So until next week, he's Matt. I'm Pete. Enjoy your bye week, and thanks for being with us on this episode of The Independent.